All right, welcome to Into the Mic podcast with Zachary
and Carson.
This is the my sports podcast. We'll be talking about all things NBA and NFL, along with the Major League Baseball news, and also a little bit of NHL action in there as well. So today we're going to be talking about wild card matchups. The NFC and AFC coming up next week, and then we're going to go into the Paul George, Victor Oladipo, and Domantas Sabonis trade that happened this past summer. Talking about the saltine crackers, and if you don't know where that's from, Jimmy Kimmel has these mean tweets, and so you had Paul George on it like last December, before when he was still on the Pacers, and so the tweet was, I think Paul George could be traded for about half a bag of saltine crackers, and so when the Paul George trade happened, I tweeted, LMAO, this actually happened. But now we're turning out that the trade was actually benefiting the Pacers more than the Thunder. So now we'll go into that later. All right, we are back. So first things first, we're going to talk about wildcard matchups in the NFC. But who gets the first and second round byes this year?
Well, the Eagles in the NFC have the first round bye, and they will play the lowest remaining seed in the divisional round since they were the first seed this year. And the Vikings have the other first round bye in the NFC, and they will play the highest remaining seed in the divisional round. So that's pretty much it in the NFC byes.
All right, so let's get right to the matchups. So first things, 3 versus 6. Atlanta's playing at the Rams. Carson, who you got?
I have the Rams in this one. I think, the Falcons made the Super Bowl last year, but I don't think they're that good this year. I think that Matt Ryan has had a really bad year compared to his MVP last year, and I don't think he's lived up to that this year.
Yeah, I have the Rams as well. The only way I see Atlanta winning this is if Julio has a breakout game. But like you said, Matt Ryan has had a big decline from his MVP season, and partially due to the offensive coordinator loss of Kyle Shanahan, who went to the 49ers. And Todd Gurley has been the MVP of the league, in my opinion, for the Rams, and Jared Goff has taken a huge step in his sophomore season. I think they take this one, and as long as Julio Jones and or Devontae Freeman don't go off for 200-plus yards, I think Rams have a solid enough defense to hold those guys down as long as their offense produces.
Yeah, I think Aaron Donald will step up big in this game. He's done really well. He's been amazing in his career for the Rams. And back to what you were saying about Todd Gurley, you think being the MVP. Here are just a couple crazy stats that should show that he has been the most valuable player to his team. 98 total first downs. That's rushing and receiving. 19 total touchdowns. 13 rushing. 6 of those were receiving. And over 2,000 combined yards. This man has been amazing this year. He's gotten over that sophomore slump he had last year. And this is his junior year in the NFL. And he's been awesome. He's been amazing.
All right, so okay. Sorry about that. We were just sidetracked. So next wildcard matchup is my Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Carson, who you like in this one?
I've got to go with the Saints. That dual-headed monster they have of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Kamara has been such a surprise this year to everyone in the NFL. I don't think a single person saw that coming. Even people who study the NFL their whole lives, I don't think anyone could have seen Kamara becoming a first-year Pro Bowler. And with Mark Ingram next to him, they've got the power back, the one cut, the monster, the machine that is their running game. And of course, they've got future Hall of Famer Drew Brees, backing those two guys up. So, I mean, I don't really see a chance for the Panthers, especially with their O-line. It may be good, but Cam Jordan is better. It comes down to that.
Yeah, being a Panthers fan, it pains me to say that I think the New Orleans take this one, barring some Cam Newton 2015 MVP performance. But I don't see that happening. Their wide receiver core is diminished other than Devin Funchess. and Greg Olson, but even he's been a little bit hobbled coming back from injury. New
Mhm.
Orleans, like you said, Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, one of the best backfield duos that we've seen in a while. They're the first duo, I believe, in the past 40 or so years, maybe
Mhm.
even ever, to have both running backs rush for 1,500 yards in a single season.
I believe it was in
And
the 1980s, the last time two running backs made the Pro Bowl on the same
yeah, and that's
team.
crazy because in today's NFL, we always think that a committee backfield is not one player is going to produce, but these both of them, and that really scares any defense.
Hmm.
And so New Orleans and Carolina are both in the same division, of course. In the previous two meetings, New Orleans won both of them. In September, New Orleans won 34-13 in Carolina, and then
And
uh,
that's when they had Kelvin Benjamin, too. That's
right,
before their wide receiver core was really as diminished as it is right now. So that just shows a lot about how good the Saints team is.
yeah, and then in December, New Orleans won 31-21, which was a smaller margin, but I don't think Carolina has an answer for their two running backs. And then also, I think Michael Thomas gets a little bit
Hmm.
ignored because 96 receptions, I believe, this year or something like that, just
It's
in his
crazy.
second season. So Drew Brees even has a go-to guy other than the two running backs. So I think that really puts a scare in any defense.
Yeah, I think Michael Thomas is a little bit underrated in today's NFL because he's not a big play kind of guy. He's a really good red zone threat. He's not thrown to a lot in the red zone though. He's more of a slower type of wide receiver, not the kind of guy like a John Ross that just he
Fast combine.
fast as hell, and Tyreek Hill just I mean those kind of guys. He's not that. He's that normal type of receiver that you really want to build around on your team.
Yeah, so you're going red zone threat, but Michael Thomas only has 5 touchdowns
Yeah.
this year, which is kind of crazy. He has 1,245 yards though, but I mean he's like they have Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara to run the ball in the red zone. So
And Colby Fleener he's caught a lot of
yeah,
touchdowns
he's
in the
kind of
red
stealing
zone.
targets as well. So I wouldn't be too bashing on Michael Thomas for that. Um, But yeah, I guess he is a little bit underrated because he doesn't get those touchdowns.
Hmm.
But he's still somebody that I would have to keep an eye on if I'm a cornerback for any team in the playoffs.
And he's only, like you said, he's only in his second season. This guy's really young, and he's
Yeah.
going to get better. And then, of course, my favorite player on this team is Cam Jordan. Some crazy stats from him in his third Pro Bowl this year. 62 combined tackles, 13 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. He has an interception, and he plays edge rusher. And, if you watch football, you know how uncommon it is for an edge rusher to get an interception, and he actually scored a touchdown on the interception.
Big
So,
boy running the
yeah, this
field.
man, he's really good. So, yeah, I think that's all we got to say about that matchup. So,
Yeah,
Saints
so
on top.
Saints on top and Rams beating Atlanta.
Hmm.
All right, so buys in the NFC.
AFC, yeah, the AFC buys
AFC.
are Patriots, of course, have the first round bye, and we'll play the lowest because, of course, Tom Brady's still there, and I hate the Patriots, but they're always going to get that until he's gone. And the Steelers, with Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, lead them to the second seed in the AFC. They have the other first round bye, and they will play the highest remaining seed in the divisional. So, yep, that's it for buys.
All right, so first matchup is Buffalo Bills at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Carson, who you got?
As a Titans fan, it hurts to say it, but this Jaguars team, their defense is just too good. I think that I think they have the best defense in the NFL. They probably had the best steal in free agency last year with Calais Campbell. He has been ridiculous. I think he has 14 and a half sacks this year.
Yeah, he's my defensive MVP.
Yeah, I think he went. I think he is definitely a top 3 candidate for defensive MVP this year, and I think they have probably the best cornerback duo in the NFL, or even the best from the past decade. Even I would go so far to say that because Jalen Ramsey is awesome. AJ Bouye coming from I believe the Texans last year,
Yes.
great signing to add with Jalen Ramsey, and they've also got Telvin Smith. You can't forget about him. Great outside linebacker.
And Miles Jack too.
Oh yes, he's a
Yeah.
great cover linebacker. You can't throw near him. I think he could play middle linebacker, but they play him at outside linebacker because they have Paul Posluszny too.
Yeah.
So this is a
Their
loaded
defense is-
defense. You can't sleep on the Jaguars defense. I think It's so good. You can't sleep on it. And the Bills might be losing LaShawn McCoy to an ankle injury, so
Yeah.
I think that seals it. If you're a Bills fan and you need LaShawn McCoy to have a chance, that's bottom line.
Yeah, and even if they have LaShawn McCoy, he's going to be less than 100%
Mhm.
either way. And so Jacksonville, I think they're the top defense in the league because they have great pass rushers and they have, like they said, they have great corners and linebackers. And Buffalo pass offense is not the best in the league with Tyrod Taylor
Mhm.
at quarterback and their top receiver being an injury-riddled Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones. Of course, they don't have Jordan Matthews. Um, due to injury. But I like Jacksonville. They're my
Mhm.
lock of the wild card matchup because I think they take this. It's in Jacksonville. They have. We've been talking about defense. Let's not forget about Leonard Fournette, the rookie
Mhm.
sensation. He's been going off this season. I mean, this team has been completely transformed from a pass-heavy offense with Blake Bortles. You can imagine how that turned out. To Leonard Fournette being a run-heavy offense, and then Blake Bortles just having to complement that and not have
Mhm.
to be the star of the
Mhm.
offense.
Yeah, Blake Bortles. Unless he goes back to like 2016 Blake Bortles, I don't think the Bills have a chance. He's gonna have to throw like 3 interceptions because Fournette doesn't fumble that much. He's
Yeah.
a great power back and he's just awesome. So I think it's a lock for the
Yeah.
Jaguars to move on to the divisional.
And you
So
look at Buffalo's defense; they're not going to force 3 interceptions,
mhm.
especially when they're going to be running with Fournette a lot. So
Unless Tre'Davious White just
yeah, and I don't see that happening.
he's really good, but I don't think he's that good yet. I think in a couple years that's a top 5 cornerback in
Yeah,
the NFL.
he's only 25.
This is his rookie year. He's 21.
Oh, my bad.
Trey White.
My
This
bad.
man is going to be
I'm thinking of
crazy.
someone else.
Yeah, this man
That's
is
my
going to be
fault.
crazy.
Yeah. All right. So next matchup is Tennessee Titans. Your Tennessee Titans
Hmm.
at the Kansas City Chiefs.
This game, honestly, I think it's a little bit, and I'm trying not to be biased here, but I think it's a little bit. It can go either way because the Chiefs' defense, losing Dontari Poe last year, their run defense got a lot worse because he was their big nose tackle guy, and this this offense, they only really have one receiver. So if the Titans can double team Tyreek Hill and find some way to stop him, I think this game goes in a way different direction than it could. But I don't think the Chiefs trust Kareem Hunt enough yet to really give him the keys to the offense. So I think they're going to rely on Tyreek Hill and Alex Smith having a really good year. I think the Titans could find a way to stop that, but we need a good game from our really good run game, and Mariota needs to step up in this game.
I think Kansas City has a good bet just because even if you lock down Tyreek Hill and doesn't have one of those boom games where he has a couple touchdowns or like a long 70-yard touchdown, they still have Travis Kelce to pass to,
Yeah.
and so he's one of the better. It's him and Gronk, top two tight ends in the league. I don't think
Mhm.
there's any doubt about that. So they have Alex Smith does have a go-to guy if Tyreek Hill is locked up, but if Kareem Hunt um, like shows up and doesn't and gets like 20 plus carries as a workhorse back. I think one of Kansas City's main problems in the middle of the season when they started 6-0 and then lost like 5 of their last 6 games in the middle of the season was that Kareem Hunt was only getting like 9, 11, 18 touches. So I think but recently in the past couple games they've been giving him back workload touches. So I think if they continue to do that, and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are enough of a um, challenge to Kevin Byard and the rest of the Tennessee Titans defense, I don't think the Tennessee offense can overcome that.
Now you can't count out this Tennessee offense because
I do like
I
Derrick Henry a lot.
Derrick Henry has been really good, and I don't think Malarkey is giving him enough carries this year. I think DeMarco Murray has already started to decline at I think 29 years old. And I think Derrick Henry should have been the lead back this year, but he definitely will be next year. And this is really a tough game for Malarkey because he's on the hot seat right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Titans lose, I think Malarkey is out the door at the end of this year.
Yeah,
So,
Mariota has really regressed from
mm,
last year this season.
yeah, he looked like he could be really good one day last year, but this year he's looked really bad. It's just been horrible. Throwing a career high 15 interceptions. So yeah, that's
All right, so that's the wild card matchups. I don't have any upsets unless there's a miracle happening in any of them. You say Tennessee could upset the Chiefs,
I
but
think so. But other than that, I don't think there's any
yeah,
really, unless the Falcons go back to last year's Falcons.
yeah.
Yeah, that would have to.
So now we're gonna get into the saltine crackers, the bulk of this podcast. We're talking about Paul George. Now, if you've been living under a rock or in West Indiana, who lives there, Thunder traded this past offseason Victor Oladipo. The Thunder received my bad. I'm sorry. Thunder traded Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis to Indiana for Paul George. So at the time, of course, Paul George, an all-star, it was like, oh, Thunder stole him. But as we've turned out, Victor Oladipo has been crazy good for the Thunder or Pacers.
Yeah, I think when I looked at this trade, Victor Oladipo had never really been that kind of guy, like a really good player. And now that I look back at it, I didn't use my eyes because I look at how many minutes he's getting in Indiana, and I look at how many minutes he was getting in Oklahoma and all the players around him and in Orlando, and it just wasn't enough for a young player like him to really develop. And now that he's getting 34.4 minutes a game in an Indiana Pacers jersey, he's really looked good. He's looked like a future really good, like a building block for any franchise. And he's looked really good.
Yeah, he's only 25, even though it's his fifth season. He's only 25, and so 34.4 minutes a game. The big difference is that it's not as huge minutes as you would think, but it's just he's taking 3 more shots a game.
And the Pacers have really trusted him. Like the Thunder, last year was the Russell Westbrook show, and I feel bad for Oladipo because he was stuck on that team where he didn't even get a shot to prove himself.
Yeah.
And in the Magic, if you remember his third year on the Magic, he was benched for half
Evan
of the
Fournier.
year. For Evan Fournier, he was benched, and he was the number 2 overall pick because the Magic just decided that he was better on the bench. But in his second season, I think he averaged around 17 points a game.
17.9.
And then he took a step back, and so everyone started giving up on him because they benched him because nobody looks at how many minutes he was playing. And, the Magic are such a bad franchise. They give up on this 23-year-old player who is... unless you're Anthony Bennett, I don't think anyone should give up on you at 23 years old. So,
Seem to be.
Yeah,
unless that pains us as Grizzlies fans.
Yeah, that hurts.
But anyway, okay, so let's just compare Paul George and Victor Oladipo because we can both agree that the Pacers won that deal. So Paul George, in his best scoring season on the Pacers, scored 23.7 points a game, and that was last year. So you can see his trade value was kind of high. Victor Oladipo this season, 24.9 points a game. And they also received Domantas Sabonis, who off the bench is averaging 8 rebounds a game, behind Miles Turner and Thaddeus Young, who may need to be replaced by Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Young is 28.
I believe he's 29 now, actually. He's getting up there in age, and I think he could be a really good piece. Yeah, he's 29 now. I think he could be a really good piece on a contender. Like, a team that needs a player, a really versatile player who can defend, like, power forwards or centers, pretty athletic, can shoot the ball pretty well. He's just a really good, he's kind of a jack of all trades, but master of none.
But I think if you put Sabonis by Turner and have, like, kind of a more Twin Tower look with rebounding, I think that'd be better for the Pacers. But anyway, to the trade, so let's just look at it. All right, so Oladipo was 25, Sabonis 21, George 27. 27 George is on the expiring year, $21 million left on his contract. Oladipo still has a 4-year, $84 million left on his contract due to the extension he signed last October.
Yeah, the Thunder really helped them with this trade.
Pacers going to have a cornerstone for at least the next 4 years. Sabonis has 2 years left on his contract, $7.65 million. They exercised the team option on him for next season, and he also has a team option for the next season. And so you can assume that they're gonna exercise that again. And so the Pacers have two young players that both produce. And they got rid of Paul George, there was a lot of rumors that he was going to leave them anyway to maybe the Lakers or even my personal favorite rumor was him going to Cleveland if they clear up cap space and try to contend with LeBron.
I was thinking Celtics, but then they signed Gordon Hayward, and then I turned my thoughts to other teams. And if you look at this was a smart deal, even if Oladipo hadn't done this, because they get two young players who could work out, and of course they both have. And George, was it really a question whether he was going to leave? I think the real question was, where was he going to go after he left Indiana? And he might not even stay with the Thunder because, the Thunder have not been that good. They were supposed to be, amazing right off the bat.
Well, they're picking up as of late, but early in the season there are a lot of questions.
And they're only picking up steam because Russell Westbrook is doing Russell Westbrook things, and Melo is kind of accepting his role now that he's, in his early 30s, early to mid-30s, and he's really accepting that he's not going to be that star player anymore. He's finally looking at the big picture for his team and not at himself, and I think that's really helping them. But still, the Thunder have no guarantees with Paul George after this year because, final year, I can't stress that enough, and he's going into unrestricted free agency, so,
And Thunder are going to be looking. They already have a big contract with Steven Adams and Russell Westbrook, of course. And so they're not going to. I don't think they're going to be able to keep Melo and Paul George.
Yeah, and George is going to want a max contract.
Right.
I think they'd rather keep Paul George, honestly, because Melo
is going to be
34 at the end of the year, I believe. So he'll be 34 at the end of the year, and Paul George will be 28 going. He's in his prime right now, so any team would want him. I guarantee you any team in the NBA would want to sign a Paul George right now. He's awesome. He's probably one of the top 5 two-way players in the NBA.
Yeah.
So good. He can defend shooting guard, small forward, power forward, I believe. Because if you remember, he played shooting guard for his first, I think 4 or 5 years in the NBA, and he was good, but he wasn't amazing. And then when he moved to small forward, because he's 6'9",
he can play shooting guard, small forward, or power forward. I think.
So that gives him the versatility to guard all those positions. And what pick was he?
He was number 10.
He was number 10 in the 2010 draft. So no one expected him to ever be this good. I think he was expected to be, a decent scorer.
It's still a lottery pick, but he's been. Let's just think the defensive stats: 2.4 steals a game this year,
and he's averaging 0.7 blocks a game. So he's just
as a small forward.
Yeah,
so it's not like he's playing a bulk of power forward or center minutes.
Yeah, but if you look at Oladipo's stats, he's averaging more blocks playing point guard. He's averaging 1 block a game and 1.8 steals. So not as many steals, but the blocks make up for that. I think I looked at it. He was the 3rd in guards for blocks because I think the only players that are above him are John Wall, and I can't remember the other one. And of course, John Wall is an amazing defender.
John Wall
he's a really good defender.
I love John Wall.
Being behind John Wall, and I think one other person, I know he was 3rd. I can't remember who the second was, but that's just amazing.
Yeah. So you were talking about why Paul George was, what team was going to leave after his contract was up. That's because many thought, including myself, the Pacers would be tanking this season. But they've been one of the good surprises of the season. They have a 19-18 record, but even with a recent 4-game losing streak they're on, their bench has been surprising. They have 30-year-old Darren Collison putting up 12.4 points a game and 5.7 assists, and he's shooting 48% from the field. 43% from 3 and 87% free throw. And that's crazy for a 30-year-old off the bench.
And because he was just a decent point guard for the horrible Kings last year and for the past couple years before that. And he's been really good. He's fit in really well with the way this team has been playing, this young team that builds around one player, and he's really accepted his bench role, and that he's really done well on it, I think.
And then you also have Corey Joseph. I think he's playing backup shooting guard minutes, but he's been great. He's a young player.
Always loved Corey Joseph. He's been a great. he was great for the Raptors and the Spurs off the bench, and he's flipped between teams. I think that he's probably one of the best bench players in the NBA
And
because
I think he's found his fit with the Pacers.
yeah, I think this is his team, and I think he'll be here for a while. So
Yeah,
and props to him.
You also have Lance Stevenson
Oh,
averaging
man.
8.7 points a game and 5.5 rebounds as a shooting guard small forward. And you see some of the highlights that this man does. He's doing crazy tricks.
Yeah.
He's kind of showing that he still has it. But then of course you have Domantas Sabonis. I think 11 points a game and 8 rebounds off the bench. I mean that bench.
Yeah,
is
the other
really
saltine
solid.
cracker.
Yeah, the saltine cracker is showing up.
Yeah, I mean he looks like a saltine cracker, but
Hey, now. So yeah, basically the Pacers get rid of an expiring contract with Paul George, who's going to be leaving anyway. They get 2 young pieces to rebuild around, which props to them. They've been doing a very good job of rebuilding, which is more like playoff contending.
Yeah,
with
they're
these
not
pieces.
even rebuilding. I mean, if they keep on losing, because they haven't had, like you said, they've been on a 4-game losing streak, and that's only because they haven't had Oladipo for the past 3 games. So they had him that first loss, but it's 1 loss, and they lose those 3 more because they don't have their star player, and I believe Miles Turner is out too.
Miles Turner is back, but
he's back.
He has had injury problems in the past. So they've even been able to overcome that injury as well.
Yeah, so but I mean, and they haven't had full Oladipo because I read that he's been battling a right knee injury since late November or early December. So that's probably 10, 11 games that they could have had more of a chance to win if they had full Oladipo, but they don't because he's been battling this injury. So I hope that he can come back at full strength soon because I've heard he's questionable for the next couple games. So hopefully he rests up that knee, gets back to full strength soon.
Yeah, so we both agree that Pacers won that deal, and I mean it's Paul George, but I think especially on the Thunder when he's not the main All-Star, he could be overtied. I mean he's averaging 20.6 points a game. That's not like superstar that you want to build around. Like they thought they were going to get him.
Yeah.
Especially in his prime. It's mostly the other stats that's really been helping. He's averaging 6.2 rebounds a game, 3.2 assists, 1.7 steals.
And I mean, 20.9 points is by no means bad. That's a really good point total, but it's not what he was doing in Indiana because he's not the main star because the Thunder loved them some Russell Westbrook. So they're going to give him as much opportunity as they want. Yeah, I mean, he's awesome, but if you're going to trade for a Paul George, you don't want to waste a year of his career because that's basically what they're doing because they might not even make the playoffs unless Russ keeps doing this.
Yeah.
And
I think they're going to make the playoffs. It's just
not
a matter
as
of how high of a seed they're going to get.
Yeah. And he's averaging around 20 points a game, but Oladipo is averaging 24.9 points per game. He's only averaging 0.2 less rebounds a game, and he's playing point guard. And Paul George is a small forward primarily, and that's crazy. And he's also averaging 3.9 assists. And he's just
to who else? Like Bojan Bogdanovic?
I know. I mean, when Miles Turner comes back at full strength, he'll probably average even more. And Domantas Sabonis doesn't even start with him. They don't get enough minutes together. I think those two would be amazing together. They need to play more.
Because Miles Turner is 21.
Mm-hmm.
So they have 2 young bigs, a young point guard, and then they have veteran leadership off the bench with Darren Collison and Corey Joseph.
And they're gonna draft more players too because obviously their GM is doing something right in Indiana. So who's to say he doesn't go out and draft another stud a stud wing which is what they really need right now.
If they could get a stud wing, then they could start Bogdanovic and then a really good small forward,
or
they still have that bench.
Or you draft a point guard and you let Oladipo move back to his natural position, which I think he fits better at because he's not the big time playmaker.
Yeah.
He's good, but he's not what you'd want. I think a player that would be perfect for this Pacers team would be like a Trae Young.
Oh,
so good at scoring.
Scoring and passing dimes.
He's a great passer. His defense could use some work, but their defense is so good already that I feel like he would fit in perfectly with his scoring. And Oladipo is probably a top 20 defender in the league is the way I look at it. And Sabonis is not really a slouch either himself. And Miles Turner is a really good defender as well in the paint.
And going back to what the Pacers gained from this is that you're talking about what many thought would be a rebuilding team, but they're above average in 6 out of 10 major categories. They're 11th in points a game with 107, 5th in field goal percentage with 47.6%, 2nd in 3-point percentage with 38.6. Like you would have to believe the Warriors and Rockets would be the top two. No, the Pacers are second, and then 12th in free throw percentage at 77.2, 15th in assists per game in 22.7, and 12th in steals per game in 7.8. And then also they're below average in blocks per game at 18th with 4.6. But Oladipo has a full block to go with that, so he's averaging almost a fourth or fifth of their total blocks as a point guard shooting guard.
That's amazing.
That's how much
crazy.
talent he has.
He has been crazy for this team. And Sabonis, and everybody looks at Oladipo and how amazing he's been, but you can't look past Domantas Sabonis. This guy has been amazing also. He's averaging 11.7 points, which is off the bench, too. He's not even getting starter minutes because, like I said, Thad Young, I think they need to move on from Thad Young because he was a part of that team last year. They traded for him from the Nets to, try and go with that team with Paul George, and that team was really bad last year, really disappointing last year. So that's why Paul George, we all knew he was going to leave because their team was...
And it looked like they didn't have any young talent.
Yeah.
They made this major move really helped, and they also got Collison and free agents.
Yeah, it looks like Miles Turner was the only talent, like the only young talent they really had. Paul George isn't old, but he was going to leave, so they needed to pull off this trade. They needed the trade. No matter what it was, they should have traded Paul George. And I totally agree with both sides of this trade because the Thunder, they get a star, but...
They get a win now. If we don't make it this year, then we don't know what's happening. But at least we can win it. We can try and contend right now.
At least they can try. And, the Pacers, they build on their young core of Miles Turner, and they add Sabonis and Oladipo, and they look really good for the future. If I was a Pacers fan, I'd be really excited.
Because they have talent, and they have young talent, most importantly. So they, especially in the East, which, everybody knocks on the East, they have really good top three teams with the Cavaliers, Celtics, and Raptors, and Wizards. But then, more teams below that, like the Hornets, you don't think that they're going to really contend. But the Pacers, if they can continue to, go with this era projecting upwards, I think they really have a shot because Miles Turner has regressed this year. But if he gets back to, superstar,
because he's had some injury problems, so I don't...
And he needs to overcome those if they're going to contend in the East.
I think he can get over those. They've been some minor injuries. He hasn't really had one of those things where he's out for a year. It's just been nagging.
It's just been like a couple games at a time. Yeah, it's just the problem is that
you need him consistently. You need a consistent player, and he's had some nagging injuries that have been bothering him since last year, early to mid last year, and he needs to get over those. That's bottom line. He just has to get over those if they want to, move on and go to the playoffs and have a shot against teams like the Wizards or who I think could be a team that they have to face in the playoffs. Because if the Wizards are the 4 seed and they're the 5 seed, they have to go against John Wall, but the problem is they don't have a good wing to stop Bradley Beal. So who do you put Oladipo on in that matchup? That's why I think
you have to keep him on John Wall.
Yeah, I think that's why you need to draft a good young wing or a good young point guard who is really good at something and
take some defensive pressure off Oladipo.
Or some scoring pressure also because he's having to do everything on the offensive side of the ball right now. So just a young
But apparently it's working because they're still 11th in points a game. So I don't think you complain too much if you're a Pacers fan. But of course you're probably asking, why would they have done this? Why would they trade 2 young studs for, an aging, or not really aging, but still 27-year-old Paul George on the end of his contract. But remember, me and Carson, we can both agree that at the time of this trade, this was a trade that was obviously won by the Thunder and not the other way around.
Because we hadn't seen what Oladipo and Sabonis could do, and we hadn't seen if the chemistry would work out because I blindly went into the season saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, the Thunder are going to be amazing this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't look, they added 2 new stars to go with
Mm-hmm.
the MVP.
And Steven
that-
Adams, who's one of the
yeah.
better defensive centers in the
And
league.
you don't really, people don't tend to think about chemistry. Chemistry is everything on a
Mhm.
basketball court. Because
That's really hurt the Thunder.
if Westbrook does not like the people he's passing to, he's going to try and do everything himself. And, you know, sometimes that works, but it's not always going to work. It's going to end in another 45-win season, which is not what you want.
Yeah,
You
especially
want,
with Paul George expiring.
yeah, they were aiming for a 50 to 53 game winning season, and I think that could happen if they start to build chemistry fast. But if they don't do it, if they don't start, you know, accelerating that process, I think it could end bad for them.
Yeah, and so Sabonis last year with the Thunder in 4 less minutes a game, 5.9 points a game and 3.6 rebounds. That is not something you want. So he was not the 11.7 points a game and 8.2 rebounds a game that the Pacers have now. He was only shooting just below 40% from the field. This year, 52% from the field. That's how big of a jump that he's made by getting valuable minutes as the backup 4.
Yeah, and Victor Oladipo last year, he was averaging 15.9 points a game, but he had significantly less minutes, like 4 or 5 less minutes, I believe, last year.
It was only 2.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird because
it's just that he was not the second fiddle to Russell Westbrook. He was the number 1 stud on this good offense.
Yeah,
apparently.
It's like they didn't give him a chance. The Magic didn't give him a chance. OKC didn't give him a chance, and now he has to have a chance on this Pacers team, and it's really worked out for him. Honestly, It was a great trade.
And the upside was always there for both of them because Oladipo taken second in 2013. There was always that upside of being the number 2 overall pick and living up to that hype. And Sabonis, you know, even him and Oladipo are actually traded to the Thunder in the same deal, but he was drafted at 11th and then draft rights traded to OKC
for Surge.
So, but he was still a lottery pick, so there was always this, you know,
upside. And his dad was an NBA player as well.
But the Thunder just didn't really see that, so they didn't really play him that much. Of course, they had Russell Westbrook.
And they had
an MVP.
They had 2 really good big men in Enes Kanter and in Steven Adams, so they really didn't find playing time for Domantas Sabonis. And
Oladipo, I thought Oladipo was going to be the perfect Russell Westbrook, you know, second fiddle, because it's hard to be the second guy with a team for a guy that averages a triple double. Like, you know, the offense runs through him, but with Oladipo, he's a great scorer, obviously averaging about 25 points a game this season when he is the number 1. So I think he was limited by Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, and like you said, he was the second pick. The upside is always there for him. And, you know, people tend to look at that 2013 draft class and say, oh, that's the worst draft class of this generation. Well, that draft class was full of developmental players. CJ McCollum was in that draft class. Giannis Antetokounmpo was in that draft class. Steven Adams was in that draft class too. Victor Oladipo now was in that draft class. And, you know, people tend to look at the first pick of every draft and say, oh, that draft sucked because the first overall pick sucked. Well, I mean, that's not true.
The order was Anthony Bennett, Victor Oladipo, and then Tyler Zeller and or Otto Porter, and then Cody Zeller.
And Otto Porter has been a really good role player.
He's been showing his upside as well.
He's been really good. And, you know, Oladipo and McCollum, Adams, Antetokounmpo, you know, though you look at that a couple years ago and you say, I even said, man, that was a horrible draft class. But that was before CJ McCollum exploded. That was before Giannis developed. That was before Victor Oladipo exploded this year. That was before Steven Adams became the amazing defensive center he is now.
Yeah.
That was before we all looked at the upside in these players.
Yeah, you have Caldwell Pope selected 8th by the Pistons.
Yeah, he's been
McCollum,
awesome.
Obviously, Kelly Olynyk was in that draft.
He's been a decent role player.
He's a backup power forward, but still serviceable. Rudy Gobert was in that draft.
I forgot about. Yeah, that is probably a top 5 center in the NBA.
Yeah, defensive, you know, top 2.
Yeah, he's awesome at defense. He's just he's a franchise center, is what he is.
Yeah, so that draft is not all, like, looking now, it's not all that bad.
And Nerlens Noel was in that draft class, and I
He's
really like
struggling with
Nerlens
the
Noel. I really like Nerlens Noel, but I think Rick Carlisle hates him. So,
Yeah, so wrapping up, I have a fun fact to leave you guys with. So the three players involved in this deal, Paul George, Sabonis, and Oladipo, actually have consecutive birthdays. Paul George, May 2nd, 1990. Sabonis, May 3rd, 1996. And Oladipo, May 4th, 1992. So that is kind of just a little coincidence of the players involved.
I wonder if the GMs knew that when they did that.
Hey, maybe they knew something special was going to happen with this trade.
It was just Dustin Ork. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. We hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening.